last half an hour, we've heard that Prince Harry and his wife Meghan and her mother were involved in, quote, a near-catastrophic car chase in New York. Rupert Bell is talkTV's royal correspondent. Afternoon to you, Rupert. What more do we know about this?
Well, details are sketchy. There's no two ways about it. The statement came out from Prince Harry's spokesman saying they were involved in this near-catastrophic incident last night, following, of course, Meghan and Harry being at that awards ceremony where Meghan picked up an award. So obviously there was a great deal of paparazzi interest in their appearance there last night. And this is all part of the, well, unfortunately, in the spotlight, something they were going to is always going to attract press interest. What we don't know is exactly what's gone and happened afterwards. As you mentioned, her mother, Meghan's mother, was with them in New York. So the three of them, and presumably it's happened post the event after they left. And as I say, we don't know what the details are. Hopefully, no one was injured in the incident, whatever, as it happened last night. Some reports suggesting it was a 2-hour car chase. Well, as a moment, these details are definitely unclear, and I'm sure more will be revealed. But clearly, it does immediately draw comparison to what happened in Paris, which obviously had fatal and very sad, tragic consequences for Harry and William with the loss of their mother and everybody else. So in many ways, in America, the problem is there are different laws, and the paparazzi do tend to operate on a much more freer basis there. So hopefully history has not repeated itself, and that we can actually say that once again, Harry and Meghan are always going to be a focus of attention. It is something that clearly has caused Harry great anxiety throughout his life following the death of his mother. And we know that it's left him, very mentally scarred, and understandably so. And clearly, if they're going incidents, if what we think might have happened, clearly that would just be for Harry, just bring back horrible memories. But in many ways, we've got to get more details before we start over-speculating.
Well, I was going to say, because there is a part of me, and there's lots of, your journalistic instinct sort of starts to spike at these moments, Rupert, of course, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if you were the driver of the car they were in, and it went on for 2 hours, wouldn't you have wanted to stop somewhere and say, look, this can't continue. I've got, very famous passengers on board, but they're blacked out windows. Maybe we can park somewhere rather than continue this. Not that I want to victim blame anybody here, but that certainly from a safety perspective might have been my instinct, but we, as you rightly say, we don't know the fuller details. The latest statement, Rupert, says this: despite being confronted by uniformed police multiple times, the paparazzi's, and this is plural, the paparazzi's cars continued their pursuit in trying to follow the Sussexes and Doria, Meghan's mother, to the private residence they were staying at. Traffic violations by drivers included driving on a sidewalk, going through red lights, reversing down a one-way street, driving while photographing, and illegally blocking a moving vehicle. Now, whatever regulations there are, Rupert, around being a paparazzi in the United States compared to elsewhere, they would be violations that the police would get involved with, you might think.
Well, absolutely. And it appears that they have. And this is the problem. But I suppose that the media frenzy will continue around Harry and Meghan. They've been kept, obviously we saw Harry at the coronation. It was a fleeting visit. But we haven't seen much of Meghan in recent weeks, and we haven't seen much of Harry until just the last few weeks, where we've seen the odd pictures are sort of coming out again, as it were. Meghan has been seen more visibly when we saw them going to have a meal last week. So there is undoubted paparazzi interest, and we're also hearing that a stalker at their Montecito villa was detained at 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's inevitably a great deal of focus on them, and everyone wants that photograph. But clearly, if there's street violations, then this is, we don't want this free-for-all again. Clearly, Harry and Meghan have wanted, and one of the reasons they left the royal family is they wanted to control the narrative. Well, they've gone to America, and it appears that narrative got a bit out of hand if we've got paparazzi deciding they just want to drive wherever they want to go. And that's not right under any circumstances, whoever the individual being pursued is. And it's not right. And if the police have tried but failed, then I would suggest those paparazzi are at fault here quite seriously.
Absolutely. And I always thought, and maybe I've got this completely wrong, Rupert, but I always thought they were, certainly when they first went to the States, they weren't quite as famous there as they are here, and certainly didn't have the same level of interest. But that seems to have changed. I mean, yes, they've had a Netflix series, and yes, he's written a book, and yes, they did the Oprah thing, and God knows what else. Maybe that's had the effect, the desired effect, some would say, of increasing their status and their profile. But certainly at the time, they felt clearly they could get more privacy in the States than they could here.
Yes, absolutely. And I know people in California, I'd say, what about Harry and Meghan? We say, well, we don't really hear about them.
Yeah,
so
correct.
Yes, so, you know, you go, well, that's fine. That's presumably what they wanted. And they want to sort of appear at high-profile moments to promote and do things at various stages. That's very much what they want to do. But clearly, if, there is still interest in a worldwide over here. So presumably those paparazzi may be thinking they want to get photographs that they can sell to maybe publications in this country. I don't know, or around the world, because there is a degree of fascination in them. And so there is a market for those photographs. But under the circumstances, chasing them around the streets of New York, as I don't feel is the right way to be going about getting them, because they had the photo opportunity as they were leaving the a big award ceremony last night. You know, you can do the flashing lights and everything there. So it was very much a chance to get the photograph. Yeah. You saw her in her gold dress and everything. But clearly, to start chasing them around New York, then that does feel like it possibly is overstepping the mark.
And possibly for 2 hours as well. Rupert, thank you for that. Rupert Bell is talkTV's royal correspondent, of course. I mean, you have to remember, you know, being a paparazzi now is, I mean, anybody can do that. It's a self-appointed gig, right? If you're on a motorbike or a car and you think you can clock a picture of somebody rather famous, then you're going to do it, right? If that's your thing, because you know you could sell it for a lot of money. These will not be people that were employed by the local magazine or the national magazine or newspaper or television company. These are just freelance people that go to high-profile events with cameras, and some of them will risk a limb to get that picture, the shot they really want. I don't know what a picture of Meghan and Harry in a car is worth these days, bearing in mind they literally just attended an event that was, you know, there is many sort of photographic imagery and video moving picture imagery of them at that event. One would assume there's also plenty of snaps of them going in and out of that event as well. So I have no idea what the worth of a picture, why there would have been such a need. And bearing in mind the statement that comes from the Prince's office is that Prince Harry's office is that there were paparazzi's cars, plural. What were they hoping to get? Who knows? That's the life of a paparazzi. But yeah, it's a dumb, if you're going to start doing that kind of stuff, it's a dumb thing to do. And whatever anybody thinks of Meghan and Harry, and I know that, you know, certainly some of my colleagues have a very robust view on what they've done, and I understand that, but I don't think anybody wants to see any individual, famous or otherwise, chased down a street with people driving on the sidewalk, as they put it here, sidewalk, traffic violations, going through red lights, reversing down one-way streets, and also driving while photographing and illegally blocking a moving vehicle. So if all of that has taken place, then that's just dumb, right? Anybody, I think, can concur with that.